Um, Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the last session. We have only 2 talks in this session. So the first talk is by Mr. P. He's going to talk to us about using statistical estimation methods derived from jaguar movements to enhance the conservation of a critically endangered population of jaguars in Atlantic forest, Brazil. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. So again, first I want to thanks for this opportunity. And like everybody else, like my main title has changed. So, but I will tell about the connection about the 2 things. So the title now is Individual-Based Movement Models as a tool to assess statistical estimation methods applied to animal movements. And the idea here is like we develop individual-based movement model, and we are going to test, to assess this statistics from this model we are creating. So that's connected with my PhD, because in the PhD I use this statistics to analyze some jaguar movement data. And where is the? Which one should I use to? Oh, sorry. Okay. Thank you very much. So my PhD in Brazil is connected with jaguar conservation. So we are going to analyze the movements, and our plans is to get insights from that movement analysis for to propose corridors in Brazil. So just to get quickly the context there is the place I'm going to study is in Atlantic forest, and Atlantic forest has been has suffered a lot of fragmentation. So now we have about 70 to 20% of that remaining, and the animal my study area is around here. So it's one of the areas that we still have more jaguars in Atlantic forest, but that is less than 50 individuals. So talking more about the project here then. So first a little bit of background, what is individual-based models? Individual-based models basically are a simulation of actions and interactions based on one or more autonomous agents. So usually you have a very simple rule that may mean that you need to give a decision, or this decision may be based on experience, or this decision may change with some kind of learning. So you put the things in the model, and that can be applied to different things, like different areas, not just biology. In general, like you start with an individual approach, and then you can get some generalize some of the outcomes for a collective information. So just to give an idea, like in general, this approach is more used in computing science, but you have a lot of use in ecology and also in other areas, like from here you have even fisheries suggested. So it's just like to show that this approach that can be used in social sciences in different things. But in my case, I'm using a very specific type of individual-based model, that is individual-based movement model. And then, like, what we are really interested here is in simulate movements. So the key variables for movements are space and time. And movement is an adaptive behavior. So if not all, like most of species have that, and even species that are not mobile have that in some time during the lifetime. So even plants have a dispersion that you can build models, movement models to consider that too. And the good thing in when you work with an individual-based movement model is that you can deal with multiple scales, and if you don't have data, like the things we are talking with Serge a lot today, sometimes this is a good approach. So, for example, for now, like in my PhD, like we have just one animal that actually like my supervisor just mentioned that they are thinking that that was shot. So perhaps like, I don't know exactly how we are doing for the PhD now. Perhaps I will come to South Africa. Just kidding. So, but the thing is, so like for the PhD we are going to sort that somehow. But the idea is, if you don't have data, you can come with some approach that you can at least explore the questions you have, and that you'd use like a similar approach if you have data. So for here, like we can like simplify also the complexity, and we can generalize insights like in a controlled situation. So that's the advantage and also, like, there is some application for that. For example, in road ecology, I've seen some papers that use individual-based movement models to see which places that the animals are more likely to cross roads, for example. So you can think about this. So, and the statistics that I talked about that we use for movement. So basically that come from two sources, like from GPS collars, mainly from GPS collars, but you can also get that from camera traps. And just a comment, like you can see that selfies are quite popular among cheetahs as well. And so the type of data we get from that are points. So points like we have here for this Springbook, or points like we have here for links, or here like the movement is expressed. But we have points between these movements as well for bats. So these movements, when we get that from GPS, we have always a delay between one point and another. So if you have like the GPS set to receive a signal for each 2 hours, you have the animal here, and 2 hours later. So just let's suppose that here we have like one point, and here we have another point, and then here we have a lake. So the animal may swim in this lake. Like you can sometimes assume that the animal just went straight, but some animals will not swim. So then this statistical model, what they do is, like, if it's an animal that will not swim, like he prefer other habitats, the statistics will take in account which are the preference for habitats, and will connect that on another approach, like something around the lake and not like across the lake. So that is one thing that these statistics do, like to see the probabilities between points. But also we can use that to identify new possible interest habitats that could be path as well. So for the objectives, mainly like is to develop individual-based model and is specifying like a probabilistic movement, and then we apply that to this statistical methods. If time allow, we are going to compare that to some different movement patterns from animals, and we are going to explore also like different setup for different temporal sampling schemes for GPS collars, for example. So 2 hours, 6 hours, things like that. What we have done so far. So first we create a heterogeneous landscape. We can control that, make more random, less random. And then we create the model. So for the model here, like we have 3 main factors. One is the distribution of the move distance. So here, like, animals are lazy, so they prefer stay in the same place or move quick or like a short step length. So the longer the step, like the lower the probability. Also, animals may prefer good habitats. So if you have a lot of food, if you have like partners, if you have protection, you walk a little bit more to get that. And then you have like directional persistence. So we walk like this. We don't walk like this or this all the time. So we include that in the model too. And if you have a mother that are like a lioness, like you better keep in the line too. So, and so just to a quick example on this. So if you have the basic random model, and then we have either the inertia model or the selection for the landscape or the selection for the to keep the persist in the same line, we may increase some probability that will be lower, like maybe increased based on the weights that we put on that. So here are our preliminary results. Oh, sorry. Here we have like a very random, we didn't put like any weight on the habitat preference. We didn't put any weight on directional persistence. We just run the model. So we can see like here like white is good habitat and black is bad habitat. So here like the animal goes everywhere. Here like we just put some more weight on the directional persistence. So it's still quite random. But the animal will walk a little bit like more on the same direction. In this one, we included the habitat preference, but we didn't put like any directional persistence. So we use different habitat preference here. When we use the very high habitat preference, the animal like walk around and straight to go to white. It's good. Walk around and straight go to white. So if you put a very high habitat preference, animals will keep in the very good habitat. In this one, we mix things a little bit. So we include habitat preference, but we put some directional persistence, and we change a little bit the distance, some distance parameters that would allow animals to move a little bit longer. So from that, we can see that like the animals is still preferring white, but they can move across a little bit longer. So it's like if you have a jaguar like that have a higher step lengths than a deer, for example. So a deer will walk like in the day less than, so just like to connect the idea. And for the next steps, we are going to then like get this these models, like from this model we built. We are going to get some samples. So for example, we got some, we have like, we know everything that the animal is doing in our model, but then like we get just 100 points of that, like at certain distance. And then we apply that statistics that do the same for GPS data. So it's the same approach, and we are going to evaluate these models. And then we can actually generate really different prototypes. So we can increase some step lengths and other parameters that are more connected with specific animals and compare that. So basically it's pretty much that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Do you have questions for the speaker? You can use that mic.
Thanks, Alan. I like the presentation. So you mentioned you were going to get real data and evaluate your model. I was wondering if there's a way to train the parameters like the directional preference or step size based on the data that you get.
Yes, like that can be a option, but I think like for the project here, it will be even more basic. Like I use more the literature, because we can get, for example, from the literature we can get information like average step lengths, some information that you can use to different animals. So if I get that kind of information freely available on the literature, I can apply that to different animals. So for this moment, I think I will be more basic. But I agree with you. Like I can for my PhD, I can actually go one step further, like in individual-based model approach, trying to use details about the one specific animal movement, like one specific species. So I think I'm going to do that for the PhD.
Cool. Thanks.
Next question, Emmanuel.
Thanks, Alan. I'm just wondering, is it a seasonal kind of study when you do your PhD afterwards to consider migration of animals? Like in the Serengeti in Tanzania, it's certain times of the year animals tend to move to a different location, and also the same with Botswana, going to Namibia. Are you considering that?
Yes, like in general, the GPS collar will stay for a long time, so we can assess like different time of the years. Like in average, it would be like each collar rest for 1.5 years to 2 years in a jaguar, because what limits the time of the collar are the batteries. So for jaguars, like the batteries can be quite big. Like usually the weight need to be 5% of the animal, less than 5% of the animal. So we don't have, I think we don't have that much big, especially for that area, I don't think we have a big migration thing. But I think that is interesting to keep in mind, because then when you do that, have these things, like you have outliers, like you have the home range, and then you have outliers from that they really go for a high distance, and then they establish in a new place. And I don't think we have that, but also like in relation to that, sometimes we can use also studies considering translocation, that you kind of do this like a forced one. But people will look for that, like, and I will look for that too. I just don't think that we are going to have a big migration thing. Also because the Atlantic forest is quite fragmented, so it will be quite hard to, if they try to do that, they might be killed in the road or something. That's why the corridor thing is something important too. Because even without migration, still we can have dispersal, so that's the idea.
Last question.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for, it's nice to see some animals as well. I mean, I'm serious, because my daughter actually starts her degree in introducing apex predators around Port Elizabeth. So anyway, but no, my question is, your model refers only to movement, to migrations. You don't build any vital dynamics into this.
No,
not yet. Yes.
Yeah, not yet. Like maybe I think for the project here, like it will be simple. It will be just the movement, and we may go like to different animal prototypes. But I think I will look forward like to see if we can like interact different movements, and then like with that different interaction include something else. So we haven't done, like we don't plan to do that for now, but I think I will look for that in some certain point.
I mean, yeah, but, why I'm asking, in some sense, it was provoked by your statement of the single object of your investigation had been killed, yes? So if you introduce sort of like vital dynamics, it should be something like Ali type, that the small populations would perish easily. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, can we thank the speaker? Okay. Thank you so much. Okay, now the last speaker for this session, for today, in fact, is Mr. Emmanuel Sweke from Hokkaido University in Japan. And he's going to talk to us about socio-ecological studies to sustain local fisheries in northeastern Hokkaido, Japan. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction. And I would like to introduce the colleagues in this work, which are my supervisors, Professor Ulf Deckman, also Professor Kang, as well as two postdoctoral associates, Dr. Pietro Landi and Oka. So my presentation actually have the same flow as the others. So I will start with the introduction, and then I will talk on the material and methods, also preliminary results and the following tasks. So to start with the introduction, you know, fisheries is complex. You can count trees in the forest, but you can't count fish in the ocean. Furthermore, when you talk about mixed fisheries, it's difficult to predict what the causes that make fishers to allocate the fishing efforts to different alternative species. But this can be because of the societal changes, but also the economic changes, as well as the biological changes. And this makes the fisheries management complex, as you can think. So, the problem statement of the 3 months project is you know, there's a global transition in transition fisheries in the world. And particularly in my study areas, there is a demographic changes. And this is the shrinkage, also aging of the population of fishers. This is Japan. Also, there is a socio-economic changes in the world, including my study area, and this also can change the demand and the supply through the globalization, trade, but also ecologically, there is a changes. We are talking about the climate change, maybe the regime shift, as well as there is also impact on resulting from the overfishing. So overfishing also can change the ecosystem, but also can change the socioeconomics also and other stuffs. So the aim of this study is to examine how the fishers, they allocate the fishing efforts to different alternative target species. And this also, as I said, biologically, so let me talk about the abundance, but also the profit of the species itself. So this brings my presentation to the study area. So this is Japan, bounded by the oceans. They love fish, also love fish. So the study is in Erimo, whereas the salmon fisheries, also the seaweed is quite popular in the area. On the other hand, Akesh is quite popular for the oyster farming. But also, so in this study, or now I'm going to present more on the salmon, seaweed, but also oyster. But also we are trying next time to extend our models to porak and trout. I think the compatibility of my presentation, you can see probably here. So, for the material and the methods, we are aiming to use 2 different data sources. That from the Fisheries Cooperative Association, that gives the ecosystem that they catch, but also from the questionnaires, we'll get data. We have data on the demography of fishers, but also the entire population in the areas, as well as the socio-economic data. So we have to link the biological and the socio-economic data. So, and many studies, they concentrate on the either biological or the socio-economic. But the aim of our study is to put together different sources of data to see how the allocation of fishing effort in the areas. So also want to predict transition in traditional fisheries in the areas. Well, also we aim to use the secret choice. That means trying to use the basic ecological concepts, economic concepts to our model. And this helps to predict the probability of how fisher, they choose different targeting species. So either it can be in terms of the abundance, where maybe the high abundance can trigger fishermen to target that species, but also it can be due to the revenue delivery reasons. Therefore, this also will help to identify the variable that will be useful in decision making. That means if fishermen, before targeting a different species, they decide either to fish or to do other non-fishing activities. So this also aims us to understand the condition in the areas. So these are the variables, the equations we have developed for our models. And starting from the effort allocation, it actually depends on the effort of the species, if species I, but also depends on the mean of effort of the other species. But also, this also, it can determine the cost of catching a certain species, but also the price of a certain target species will also depend on the catch of that species, but also the catch also will depend on the effort. So this is how we are going to use this kind of equations to the model. So we have the preliminary results, trying to see that our assumption with the price and the catch, that as the as the catch increase, the price will go down. So this is our assumption, and we are going to use it in the model. So we can see here for this species, there is a decrease in market price as the catch increases. So moving forward to the model, and this we use in the MATLAB using the ordinary differential equation. And we can see here that if we have an unstable equilibrium, that means the model will be biased to a certain species. But if you ignore, for example, if you ignore the effort allocated to seaweed, that means you are now talking the effort here allocated to oyster, but also to salmon. That there is an imbalanced equation, an imbalanced equilibrium. The same applied to different species. But to get this is the stable equilibrium. That means the allocation of the effort to different targeted species is balanced. And actually this is from 0 to 1. So when the equilibrium is balanced, we expect that we have the equilibrium that will balance to all the species. And this is the preliminary result we have. So in the future, we are going to study more the outcome of changing effort. So based on the biological parameters, but also the economic, also the society factors. But also, we are going to study how the introduction of new fishing techniques. We are talking the oyster farming. This is farming. The rest of the species, they are from the capture fisheries. So trying to see how, if in an area we introduce the fishing techniques, how it's going to affect or to relocate the effort of the other species. But also to parameterize the models, but also to extend the models to more species to see how it can enable us to predict the allocation of fishing efforts to this species. So having said that, this makes the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Do you have questions for the speaker? Okay.
Thanks, Soike. Good presentation. Can you go back to where you showed the relationship between, one more back, I think. Yeah. It looks like for oyster, something else is going on there besides the relationship of catch and price. It looks like the market crashed or something once they got above 2. I wonder if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think for the oyster, many years ago in the area, they used to collect oyster from the wild. But as time went on, there was the decrease of abundance of oyster. So that means instead of collecting from the wild, so fishermen have to do the farming. So before it was not oyster farming. So listen to that means this kind of trend it might be explained by this lesson.
Mm.
Yep.
Is there any way to take that into account?
Yeah, we are still learning the model, so we think about it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
This unstable equilibria, this boundary equilibria in the next slide, they are sort of like, you said that they are saddle, all of them are saddle equilibria? Because you have 3 boundary equilibria here, yes, which correspond to total extinction, so it is obvious, and then you have 2 other equilibria which correspond to 0, 1. There is no unstable, there is no equilibrium at the sort of like bottom corner here, because boundary equilibria means that everything, if you simply remove from the picture one of the species, then there is an equilibrium. This is the meaning of this equilibria, yes?
Yeah, the meaning here actually, the general is to compare for the 3 species.
Yes.
But now, if we take one species
Out.
yeah. So if we take the example, we remove the effort allocated to seaweeds. So that means we are removing this. So that means we will have this axis and this axis. So that means for this the equilibrium will be here. But that means it is not stable because we have also to consider the other species. So that means if we include the other species, that means the equilibrium will tend to move to this position. And
The question is, first of all, no, there are 3. Okay, so just remove. Okay, and for example, if you remove simultaneously the effort for oysters and salmon, then there should be also some sort of like an equilibrium. So you should have a line of equilibria. Because here you demonstrate, you simply take out only 1 species from the equation. What happens if you take 2? And you concentrate, for example, only on salmon? It should be also an equilibrium in some sense, probably unstable.
Yeah, it should be an equilibrium. Maybe if we take
So you should have some sort of like the boundaries should be equilibria also.
Okay.
Oh, well, maybe we can talk probably about this later. Okay.
Any other question? Okay, can we thank the speaker again? And this brings us to the end of our presentations for today. Right now, I think I have to do some closing remarks. I have positive remarks and constructive remarks. I will start with the positive remarks. First of all, I want to thank you all for, in terms of your organization of slides. Most of you did a very good job. And I also want to thank you for your high level of confidence. You did demonstrate that. And eye contact was good for most of you. Also the tempo, the way in which you present, you were not too fast, you were not too slow, you were just good. And most of you demonstrated high knowledge of the subject matter, and I think this is highly commendable. So I think you should give yourself a big round of applause for this. Now, constructive remarks. Number 1, I want to point out the issue of time management, especially in the beginning. Most of you did not use the allocated time properly. You went beyond it. So I just want to advise you to practice and rehearse on your own so that when you come here, at least you are able to use the allocated time effectively to allow for questions and discussion. It is very important. Another thing is let me start with your title. it's important for you to explain your title. Most of us here don't have topical knowledge of what you're talking about. So as you explain your title, at least you are also bringing us into your subject, and you also capture our attention. So it's very important to explain your title. And as you explain your title also, it's important to define terms. Most of the terms are technical. I have two examples here. Like the first speaker, Emmanuel, was talking about drainage and salinity. I don't know what salinity means. I have to go and ask him. So don't take it for granted that everybody knows. So most of the terms are technical. And acronyms, Maria used RED, and she didn't explain that one. Maria, it's not that I hate you. Ne? I'm just making an example. So it's important to explain acronyms and technical terms also. The other one, in your introduction, most of you spend most of your time in the introduction. So you tempted to over-elaborate, and that took too much of your time. So try to avoid over-elaboration in the introduction. The most important components of your presentation is your results. So just make sure that you don't spend a lot of time in the introduction, but at least when you introduce your topic, make sure that you introduce it to a level where everybody's going to understand. The next one is your results. This is mid-term presentation, so we expected you to have at least covered 50% of your results, your objectives, but most of you didn't have results or good results. So it was very disappointing. But some of you have very good results. So also in the presentation of your results, you presented graphs. The labelings in some of the graphs were not good. X's were not explained, so it's important for you to explain X's, to label your graphs properly, to make sure that we understand. Also, interpretation and analysis. Most of you did a very good job in interpreting your data analysis. Some did not. So it's important to make sure that at least the audience understand what you're talking about. The other thing, it was handling of questions. Most of you handled them very well. But most of you spent a lot of time elaborating. So it took the time that was allocated to you. So make sure that you don't over-elaborate when you try to explain something to somebody or to answer a question. So especially in the beginning, most of you did not really handle the questions very well. So it's try to explain to give too much information unnecessarily. So the last thing that I want to point out is in your slides, some text went off the slides. So make sure that next time you don't make that mistake. But generally, this was a very good presentations, and I'm very much impressed with that. And I think also our supervisors who are here were impressed, and also our colleagues who are joining us via video streaming. If they have comments, I would also like to invite them to send us those comments. Then we will, I'll talk to you about them tomorrow. Thank you so much. Tomorrow we start same time. Make sure that 8 o'clock you are here to load your presentations. Tomorrow is going to be half a day. Thank you so much. I'm not sure if there are any comments from the audience. Thank you so much.